Hello, my friends. We are live again on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for joining us. If you can see us, if you can hear us, something in the comments. Let us know. Also, let us know where you're joining us from. I always love seeing that from our members from all over the world. Today, we got an exciting presentation ahead of you. So, mapping, I feel, is perhaps the most abused and the most underused visualization in Power BI. It's the most abused because I've seen people use maps where they really should not be using maps. And it's underused. And frankly, I learned that um, with Anthony, opened my eyes, a presenter, a speaker today. And I saw him doing things with maps, which was just incredible, mind blowing. And it just made sense. It wasn't for the flash and whiz and bang. It was there because it helped understand data in a whole new level. All right, so I see some hellos. We got folks joining us. So, Anthony, I'll just turn it over to you. And yeah, go ahead by yourself and let's get started to see ArcGIS in action, Power BI.
Just going to share my screen. Thanks, Avi, for the intro. And welcome, everyone. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, how I came across Power BI. I was actually born in the UK. My dad was I wouldn't say workaholic, but he taught me the importance of hard work, and in the field that he was in, quantity surveying, is a very data-driven environment. So from a young age, I was exposed to, the first Osborne that came out. If anybody cares to remember that kind of dates my age anyway. My mum was a very keen chef. In fact, she was a cordon bleu cook. And so you will find me on weekends spending some time in the kitchen. I like to do a roast on a Sunday, particularly. So it takes my mind away from the general work and the day-to-day. So if you have a chance, have a look at my blueprint profile that was published a little while ago. It gives you a bit more about what I've done. I moved around a little bit. I spent some time in South Africa, saw the other sort of side of people and the struggles, different areas of Africa. Spent some time in Kenya, Ghana, and Egypt. Those were key places of kind of interest, beauty as well. As I kind of went through from South Africa, where I did my master's degree after doing my engineering degree in the UK, I did quite a bit of work with Barclays Bank, and this is kind of the interest where it started. So, lots of data, lots of different aspects of the business, and kind of went into my career moving to Canada. Canada is where I reside now. And here I've done everything from work on the line, machining parts, to my current role in grocery. So kind of moved through different businesses, pharmaceuticals like Genentech. I worked with them for a while, and kind of had an exposure to different aspects. Excuse me. When I did get to the work that I do now, really the technology that we use interests me the most. And when we started to try and get an understanding of data, that was where Power BI really stepped up. For us, it's a lot of data. We have thousands of projects going at any one particular time. We'd be working on 200-300 projects. We're gaining that data about how the projects are performing. We're trying to figure out total costs and those kind of things. We are working through live schedules. We're working through the costs, and we're trying to project and predict how things are going in the future.
Hey, Anthony, I just want to make sure the slide-wise, we're still on the one with your photo
Yeah,
modernizing the way. All right, good. Keep going.
that's just, this is my background, and then you'll see there's only
Love
a
it.
couple of slides, and then we're going to get into a live demo. So, but I wanted to give you a background. So the next, just to talk about kind of where that fits with this, really this is about mapping. So mapping for me started when I was trying to figure out, okay, we were given a particular problem, trying to figure out how do you best present that problem, or find a solution to the problem that exists. Traditionally, you would do it very manually, like you would draw on a map, or you outline a map and trying to stitch it all together with, overlay it with data. Power BI has some great things in it, and there are potentially two ways I see of doing mapping at its core. The geodatabase that exists within ArcGIS is predominantly what people think you need to do. You sign up on an account, you pay on a monthly, and most organizations will probably do that. It's not the only way. As you'll see, that the graphical information system, as it's described, has layers within it. You essentially are putting information at individual layers. And you can do that on a vector basis or raster level. Vector is the most common form, where you have points or lines or polygons. So when I talk about boundaries, I'm referring to mostly polygons. When I talk about, getting from A to B, that's lines, and points is points. Most people just see on a graph points, right? Or sorry, on a map, just points. That's what they want to depict. And how you take that information and then share with others and tell the story behind that is kind of where the vector side overlaying on a raster image, which is really grids or cells of data or imagery that is existing in the background. So the raster layer or the base layers are like Google, the satellite image, and you're projecting that data in a vector format, and they need to link between what you have as a vector layer to a raster layer. So I just want to explain the fundamental behind that. Shapefile is slightly unique to Esri. Esri came up with this as its proprietary way of identifying geospatial data, linking it to the GIS software. So that's really what that's about. And that's a way you can represent lines or polygons or areas or anything with an attribute, such as a temperature or name. So that was that. So as I get into it, you'll see how this kind of fits together when you're plotting this information onto a map. So the next one is, I just want to shout out to two individuals which I follow, and I when I have time, look at their they have a lot of YouTube videos. James Dales, who for me has really elevated the mapping community by creating Icon Map, has great tutorials on different things. Some of the stuff is really kind of new, and I don't even have probably enough time to get into and demonstrate today. So if I'm invited back, Avi, maybe I will get to understand some of the new stuff that he's developing.
Yeah.
So we'll cover that maybe in future. And Alice Drummond, for me, is really interesting to listen to, but she's applied the mapping principles to environmental issues that occur in Australia. And it's phenomenal to actually kind of see how the mapping has been used and how it's been applied to really solve world problems in that arena. So that was it. So what are we going to cover today? We talked a little bit about the mapping. I'm going to give you specific examples of drive time, which is, if you've ever used or if you need to know, it's really easy to get the software itself. QGIS is what I use instead of, which is there's no fee, it's open source. Instead of ArcGIS, which is a license based. You can download that onto your laptop and kind of play with it a little bit. It takes a bit of time, I'll be honest, to get familiar with how it works. But as I say, it's a good platform, certainly to do some of the manipulation you may need with from your existing data to something that you can use in Power BI. Going to talk about choropleth maps and then a little bit of clustering if I get time, but I should think those two main topics may take the majority of the time. So with that, we're going to switch over to, if you want to join me on the Power BI side.
All right, let's do the demo. I'm excited.
Yeah. I did have one more slide, but this is kind of funny in a sense. One of it will be projecting. I kind of use Starbucks. Everybody knows Starbucks, but if I lived in this house in this location, I kind of wanted to know, just interestingly, how long it would take me to get to each of these Starbucks locations. So it's a kind of a interesting example. So let me just.
I'm sure very relevant to many in the audience.
Yeah, I thought it might relate a little bit. So I called it routing map. Let me just share my other screen. So give me a second. There we go. Make sure I get it on the right screen. And is that it? Okay. Okay.
All right. Yeah.
Okay, this is it. Hopefully you see this.
Yep.
Right. So we'll start with that little segment of what I talked about, which is talking about distance from this location. So this location down here somewhere is where that guy, not I personally live.
Can you do me a favor really quick, Anthony? Just click on that hide button. You know where it says this is sharing your screen and hide?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sure.
Perfect. Great.
Is that good?
Yep. Looks good. Keep going.
I feel like a novice.
You're doing great.
All right. Keep my coach in my back corner. So this is really what, if you've ever done some calculations using isochrones. Isochrones will basically give you a distance from, or a catchment, as a reach to point from any given point. So in this case, I've mapped two different areas. One is a larger area, and then I can click on the map and I can show, oh, it's just this area I want to be interested in. The distance will be, plotted and be hidden within the WKT file that you've created. Most likely not from GIS, ArcGIS, but likely from using the software, as I mentioned, QGIS. One of the things you'll find is I realized if you've ever tried to plot WKT, well-known text is essentially a kind of way to embed all the lines, if it's lines or if it's a boundary, it will give us a polygon into a string of text numbers. So if I go into here, this is kind of what it does. It pairs the X and Y coordinates, sorry, there. It pairs the X and Y's and gives you this multi-polygon line. It looks like gibberish. To be honest, you don't really need to know exactly what it's doing, but it's giving you all the points and then it's trying to give you the outline. So that is a very long string. And then it plots it or tries to plot it. Now, if you try to plot it on its own, it won't work. Typically because the length of the string is over the capacity for Power BI. Power BI is a limitation of, I think it's 36,000 something individual length for the actual field. So you have to do a little bit of manipulation. So I'm going to walk you through that a little bit here. First of all, you want to know, is that a problem with this particular, call it WKT, right? So WKT, the easiest way is just go to transform, and you're going to extract the length of that particular digit. So you can see I've already done the transformation. It was past the 30,000. So this one is a problem. Let me go back a stage. I'll do it before the transformation. So extract, and you put the length in here. I'm just going to insert. And you'll see that it's 49,000, which is over the limit. It won't pass that through. It'll create an error, or it won't process it at all, and you won't see it. So that's something that you just need to be aware of when you're doing these calculations. So the first thing I figured out that, and that's why I like Alice Drummond, she had a good tutorial kind of on this subject to figure out how do you resolve those odd situations where you have multiple, or should I say, lengths of fields that are lengths of that which are over the character. So essentially, it's a few steps. I guess maybe I should share this on a link to you or something, so that maybe I could pull out that for anybody who may have this problem. Might be of interest. So you're basically splitting by the column, the position within the text. I've selected 30,000 just to make it easy on me. And then once you split it, you're going to then also put an index in here. So you've got to have to put an index at the end. And you've got the original first index that was there. So that was before the split. You can see there's one item there, and now there's 3 or 4 items in total. So that's what you'll need to do if you want to then be able to bring it in. You then have to, once you pulled it apart, you're going to stitch it back together. So that comes in a little bit of I suppose a transformation magic that you do on this side as a kind of a 2-stage process. So the one, let me show you what I did earlier. So root CV, and that one was okay. So here, so this was call it the concatenated, and this is the processed. So just follow the steps that Alice has given you. It's essentially taking that processed, which is individual, the WT. If it's got a dash in there when it does the break, then it knows to put a space. So that if statement is just a general if statement. It puts a space, so it knows that when you put it back together in the concatenated, which is essentially the joining of the two that we just split, it doesn't return when it sees a negative.
Are you able to make the formula a bit bigger?
Is that better?
Perfect. Oh, that looks so much better.
Is that much easier? Sorry.
Yeah, and if you can also click the down arrow on the right side, I think that'll give us on the right side.
The full.
Okay,
There's nothing else to it.
Okay,
that
great,
is
great. Love it.
It's not a long. So this
That's
is a column. Just remember that is a column. So you're creating a column from the data set, and then you're just essentially, if it's seeing that negative, it's making the space and return. It says if that, then put the space in. If not, just return the regular value for the WKT. Okay. You might not need to do that if you have small numbers of lines, then it may not even be required, but it's a kind of catch-all just in case scenario. The concatenated that I talked about earlier, this is a measure, and we're using the concatenate X function. We're essentially stringing the process, that one that came out from the previous function, and we don't need a I can't remember, it calls for something here, but you don't need an order. You're just doing by order by index here, and then I've got the index that I mentioned to you earlier before you do the split, so it knows to put the ones back together that it originally came with. So that's just about something to watch for. I found a lot of my maps didn't work, and I was like, couldn't figure it out, and then this was an apparent issue. So just be mindful. If you're seeing nothing come up on your maps, this might be the reason for it. Okay. So that was the one that we were looking at in terms of isochrones. This is about routes. So again, the same location that we figured out from earlier, and then working a distance to each Starbucks location in the vicinity. This one is actually a compilation of I think 10 different routes to 10 different Starbucks in different files, and then I've sort of pulled them all together, and then I'm essentially just plotting them here. Now there's no it's pretty, I mean, this is not very helpful because it doesn't tell you, you know, how long that route is, all of those kind of things. So you would need to add in a little bit of information on here. On the label side, I would go down and I would say, right, tell me either proposed route or the travel time, plot me those things. And you see it gives you a crazy number. So I always like to do some formatting on those before you go and plot them. Remember, it's plotting everything under labels as a text field. So, you know, just a simple format can get rid of some of those things. I'll show you some of that later, but it's fairly easy to just modify the text for a particular field that way. So when it plots, it does it properly, or you can do it in transform data, however you wish to do it. Just remember that it is text when you're going to plot it onto the image. So the nearest one to this is over here. That's the route to it. I could probably color them differently by those specific routes. I have a feeling I didn't try this, so forgive me if I get it wrong. Trip duration, gradient. It could be a border. Sometimes it doesn't do it quite the way you expect. Let me just double check. It's a problem with live demos. Border transparency, border color. How was that? Okay. Somewhere here. Let me just check. Let's text again. Okay. I'm going to come back to that because I think it's a setting.
All right. No worries.
It's all right. It individually, I should be able to change the route color. Like I can select it, which means I did, but somewhere on here, I remember you had to. Could be the fill. It wasn't the fill color. Anyway, not a big deal, but that's kind of wanted to see what was going to happen. Nope. All right, no problem with that. The new version of Icon Pro is a little different. I haven't spent a lot of time with it, but I realized that this is where the app is going. It costs around $55 a year, I believe, for up to 24 users, which isn't bad. And I really think the biggest challenge is going to be trying to kind of learn how to do things, because the interface and the options are massive. Like, you get so many new options with this that it is crazy. Like, you can have control over every single bit. So if I wanted to plot a route, then this is Herb, which is HEB down, not Herb, HEB down in, I think I plotted this out of Houston. This is routes that they would have from their central DC to these locations. And I've just plotted it to see kind of how it would look. You can now go in with his new version and put a truck here, show it doing the route and the rotation, and as it goes through the route, you can start. This has new settings for start image rotation, end image rotation, almost like you see he's done a version of this on flight paths and planes, kind of getting to the state of, you know, real live updatable maps in real time. So once I learn more of it, I will.
Yeah, but that was so cool. So you're saying I could show on a map, as long as, of course, we get the data feed figured out,
Yeah,
maybe a truck live exact location where a truck is. And of course, I'm imagining somebody with has a fleet, and they can on a map see exactly where all these trucks are. And of course, they could use it for other things. I don't know, location of your sales agents at that time, or something like that. That can be shown on this map.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
and yeah, it has some real interesting uses, and I'd like to play with it a little bit more to kind of see how those things work. This was the previous version of Icon Map. To an example, I did that one from Houston for HEB, and I said, okay, plot this route and show me in different colors, and obviously got that working last time I did it, but I think it should be under formatting. But under here, you can select which fill color you're going to use for which, if it's a polyline or if it's going to be a essentially a polygon. So you can select that, and then, you know, it will spit back out which ones are which and what's the furthest one from the DC. I think if you follow the lines down, you kind of get 4.7, so that's 4.5 hours. This is the longest route to wherever this particular HEB is in this. Yeah. So that's kind of mapping at that level. Now I'm going to show you what maybe the future is as I see it. Having the ability to kind of connect through Azure. Azure is a newer platform for me. I haven't really played with it that much, but what I can tell you is that not only it has some great graphical interfaces, but this one I've just turned on simple. It was already an option. The traffic, the live traffic. So you can actually look, here's the traffic route, and how is this particular guy, if he was navigating today in this area, he would have a traffic obstacle right here. You know, you could get pretty close and close to reality. So that I see as maybe the future. It's like, okay, what we see today is one thing, but you can actually go down and look at individual. As I talked about the base map, we really didn't talk about it, but every GIS program, mapping software, app usually has a base type of call it base map that you can use. So you can change it and click in this example, but some of them are not easy. Some of them are, you have to actually go in and fiddle around to get it working. So there we go. All right, but you can see the use of that information would be good. So I think either AI or us would be able to help with rerouting, seeing patterns and rerouting in certain circumstances, the trucks or the deliveries. Okay. I didn't do that, but anyway. Have my own account with ArcGIS, but this is ArcGIS version of this. I guess you don't always have to have kind of wanted to know. So this is a true GIS platform, not like a platform like Icon, which is really, slipping sheets of data over an image file. This is using an actual graphical information system as a base to get plot your data on it. So they have Living Atlas. It's supposed to be the live version of data, and typically you can put in anything from earthquake risks, or I'm just gonna let me just go on let's see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen, but whenever you load up this program, you have to make sure that the region or the area that you're getting the information is selected. Otherwise, it will give you a pretty odd error. So this is straight from Living Atlas. It gives you earthquake risk zones. So I just picked that one. I honestly didn't know what it was going to bring out. The one that I have, and the nice thing about this platform versus maybe some of the others, there's data that exists. You can also just switch on and off at a moment's notice which you want to see. You can layer that information. You can change the information so it appears the way you want it to appear. This one that I did census, you'll have the same information. Before I get into the next part of the demo, I should explain census information. So this gives you a good understanding of maybe the layers. There are multiple layers. This is the one for Canada, but this is essentially a large list of things. So within here, we have PR, which is province. You'll have the Canadian area as well. You'll have all down to the Fed level, the CDs, CCS. The ones that you use most of your mapping for is CMA, which is Census Metropolitan Area. There is an equivalent in the US to that. I think it's just maybe metropolitan area. You have PC, which is postal codes. So these are actual postal codes. Yours would be zip codes, etc. There is a CT level. So within the CMA, you'll have a CT, census tract, and then within the CT, you'll have dissemination areas, which is a kind of 10 to 50,000 boundaries of areas that you're using for statistical analysis. So whenever they do a new, I think the next one's coming next year, every 4 years. The last one was 2021. The new one will be 2025. They're gathering from every household actual stats and information, and that's open to some extent for us to use. So we'd like to know, for example, population in a particular area or census tract or those kind of things to help us with targeting, let's say, promotionals or trying to figure out, where our incomes come from. If we're a Starbucks, stores are going to be supported by that number of people. Hopefully that was clear. If not, we'll hopefully it will become clear. So this, although I've got the old one on, this is essentially all the census tract kind of individual, what I call it, boundaries. And for this next demo, it's important to understand kind of the logic behind it, because you'll pull that information and try and pull that together and map it. But you need it in the background. You'll need to be thinking about, okay, what does that? Why am I doing that? Mapping is misused because people don't think of the application. They don't think of, okay, I got to use it for this reason, and that's all in the back. Otherwise, don't show a map. Simply, there's no point. So I've chosen that area because that's kind of near the area I'll be looking at. Let me just switch to the other. So I'm going to bring this one up. Okay. Okay, so this is random data. It's not for any particular, it's not based in reality, but it is using some basic principles. These are all stores. Okay, this is my store is, I'm just making up, is 50505. It's the store in close proximity to where I live ish, and it is these other stores are within this distance of that store. Okay, this calculation is I'll just quickly show the distance. I think it was that one. Check. Trying to check out that one. Okay, so this is a column, not a measure, but you can do it as a measure. It just gets a little bit more challenging. It looks at the store location varies, but in this case it doesn't. There's just one store. It's
Can you
using
do the zoom in thing again.
Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting that. Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. This is pretty standard in terms of calculation. So it looks really huge, but really it's taking into account the Earth's surface, and it's plotting from a latitude from one point to a longitude another point and working out the distance between. So it's a straight line calculation distance. It's not taking into account roads. And that's one of the biggest challenges or problems with a lot of the calculations you'll do. You need to remember that calculation, what it's actually doing in reality, is just a straight line calculation. So this is the competitor. This is the latitude of the store location. This does a cosine of that. It multiplies that by that and do it again, and then gives puts it to the power with this crazy thing. Honestly, you don't really need to worry about it. Just know that it does work, and I checked it, and it's within 0.001 of being correct. So if you ever need this calculation, I think you can Google it. You can probably just ask AI to probably give it to you these days, but that's kind of what that does. Is that clear? Okay. So when we're doing that calculation, it's really just spitting out that distance from the store that I selected. Now, obviously, I had multiple stores, and I could select those stores, and it would do the same calculation and spit back the distance to that. So I'm going to talk about, let me go into the competitive. Now, as I said to you earlier, or mentioned earlier, it's pretty easy just to plot a point on a map, and certainly I can do that. I can say, okay, Costco, but really, what does it tell you? It doesn't really tell you a lot, and I wouldn't recommend that this has any value. What can be valuable is sharing or knowing how many competitors in the marketplace, how many of that type of, let's say, giant tiger are within the close proximity. Those might be helpful. But I just have that sense that if you're plotting something, this probably isn't the best way to do it. This one is a drill down into that particular store location. So what I'm doing here is two things. I'm looking at the ethnicity and language, and I'm also looking at so this is the market share within that area, and I'm plotting that to get me a good understanding. Okay, so this particular area has this trade area of makeup. This is mostly Punjabi and then Italian and Arabic population. And then I'm also seeing that this has the South Asian, Arabic, and Black population and the percentage. So this helps with some analysis of area and demographics. That's probably the first thing. I'm just looking at Hamilton and Ontario as a whole because I don't want to pull in any other information. So I can change that and I can list all the different areas. This is straight from Census Canada data that I'm pulling in. It's important to know that, I mean, like users are users, they want to select maybe more groups values, or they might want to select one, see the top. So I always put like a way for them to do that. That's also quite helpful. When you select in here, you want to see which CT that's related to. Remember that each of the CTs have a related DA. So as I start to select this, I should actually see, probably bad selection. Okay, don't worry too much about that. The store is somewhere here in this example, and as I said, it was dummy data, so it's not really particularly valid, but this data is true. If I look in this particular neighborhood, this is what I should expect to see as the highest ethnicity and language. And if I was to break that a bit further, that's kind of the breakdown I would see. So again, things like here, the Italian, German, Hispanic, the most spoken languages, also broken up by CNMA in that grouping. So that's boundary application. Now, the way we get to that boundary is, again, through that, what I showed you in the previous example, under here, under objects. This is the WKT, and this one actually comes in from this one over here. So WKT under the mapping. So I tend to group the information. So here's the mapping portion from QGIS, and then I look at, okay, I want to map that, which is essentially this, all of these CTs. I want to map that against the store. So then the store side, I have all the store information in one table. I've compiled it from other sources. Now, I should mention that it's difficult to know the distance between a boundary and a point. So you have to run QGIS. QGIS will allow you to create a list of all. So in this example here, let me go to the table, it's a bit easier to see. This is this listing here. What I did is I threw in the CTU ID and I got out essentially the longitude and latitude, and then from there I can work out which is essentially the centroid, which is the center of it. So you can do that in QGIS. Just show me this or give me back the centroid for these locations, and you export it as a CSV file, and then you just bring that in. So that, I just want to explain that that's how that's done. Otherwise, you can't relate the middle of that CT to the store location. It's almost impossible. Hopefully I'm not losing too many people yet. Mapbox, similar. I'm not a huge fan, to be honest. I don't think it's as helpful as icon map. So I'm a bit more of a icon map, avid user. But it is there to use. And then we have the back to the icon map example. So when I was mentioning the distance thing, this allows you a lot more control and to some extent find errors. So when we were working, I was trying to figure out, okay, is a CT actually in close proximity to the store or not? That calculation we did earlier and putting it in here, that I could actually just filter down and say, I only want to see the ones within 9, well, let's say 5 kilometers. Those are the 5 in 5 kilometers of the store. That's really easy then to do. You can just do the filters and modify the entries from that point. Obviously, I like to see that we have an image. This is the new image card you can put in there as well, put an address. Those kind of things help the user. Oh, we're talking about that store. I remember what that looks like. Or it could be a map, it could be anything, or like an icon of overhead shot, just to make sure what we're looking at. I think we're pretty much almost at the end of that. Maybe the last thing, so this loads. We're probably going to have a few questions, I guess, maybe. Yeah, here we go. The basic map plotting, yeah, as I say, you can do it. I think what's kind of useful with the new version of, or at least with ArcGIS and probably with the new version of icon map, is the ability to do some level of clustering. So I think this should have it. So there's another area that's clustering. What you'll start to see here is, because I've applied many points to this, it will cluster them together, right? Which can be quite useful. You want to see where all your competitors are in a particular area. You can use that way of mapping it so that you can kind of show that interface. And you can, that's just got the index on it. Note that within any of these that you do, you have other options to put tooltips on. So if, like here, I want to see, okay, so what is that? Let's go down here and say, store. I'm looking for, okay, banner, that's fine. As I start to hover over that, it should, because it's not. Oh, did I turn it on? Okay. That just tells you how many. Clustering, text. Wasn't that? That's the outline. So it goes with that's one of the things that really points, can boundaries. Okay, trying to find the right one. Okay, oh, maybe it. Oh, one can do that. Okay, well, different way of doing it, but I can do it by banner. Color by banner. Okay, it's given some really horrible colors, so you can't see them, but they are different colors. I can show you. But as you scroll out, you can see you'll get how many in that particular area. And that's really clustering, in short. Okay, so I hope that was interesting. I hope you had some insight and maybe got some ideas. That's all I have for you right now.
That was great. Hey, do you have, if you can go back to your interest slide, we'll leave it up there. I
Sure.
definitely have questions that I want to ask you.
Okay. Let me just.
And I'll put, folks, I'll put our speaker's contact in the chat again. Make sure to connect with him on LinkedIn, because yeah, so that's been my challenge with some of this, that there are so many options. And you showed that with the new icon map, you showed that with the ArcGIS, and it's just it left me kind of a bit bewildered. But yeah, so that's why I was glad for a walkthrough of step by step. I was like, hey, so that was really good. I'm sure a lot of folks appreciated it. So Anthony, what I wanted to ask you was that, tell us a bit more about the practical applications of the map. So I know like market share is one. Yeah, tell us. So you showed us, we focused a little more on kind of, hey, here's how to do it, but tell us
Yeah.
about the application and how, where maps can really shine. It's like, whoa, seeing this on a map is just so much more meaningful than seeing it in a table.
That's a good question, and I was trying to give you some real life experience, like the traveling salesman problem. When I first started out, I actually had to visit locations to install software, and I had to manually figure out, okay, I should go this way and go to this location, one after the other, to try and figure out the right routing. And that was really like fresh out of university. And if I had something like that at that time, I think it probably would have, visually you can see, okay, here's the route and this is the best route because, something's analyzed it and provided it. So the routing for me was an example. I think that, whether the transportation, use it as in depth as what I maybe shown, or I only use the mapping side. But could you imagine you have extra data on actual travel time and history of how long were they at a store or location, offloading. You start to put that information in and analyze it. I think that's golden. It's some of the stuff that some of us lie awake at night, I'm sure, dreaming about. The application
So
that
wait, I think
yeah.
I'm trying to figure it out. So I was thinking about routing, and I'm like, hey, why not just use Google Maps? But I think you're talking about more. You're not talking about hey, I'm here, I want to go from here to point A to point B, what's the fastest route? What you're talking about is we can analyze historically what has happened with
Yeah,
the traveling salesman example. Like we can see that, oh, when they took this route, how many houses were they able to visit, what were their sales, things like that. And of course, to different applications. Man, that idea is fascinating. So not just like, I don't know, I'm more
but
drawn towards that more than live
you know
routing.
why I think that is. Like we work in an age of GPS, right? Every truck driver these days has GPS on their, and they're
Ooh,
collecting that data. So the data exists. I no doubt.
yeah.
If you're a major player, then you already be thinking this way. So it's just I
Man, that is
don't know.
fascinating. Yeah, I think that, yeah, the historical data. If you have a traveling salesman or a fleet of trucks or something else, something that is moving and can be GPS augmented, which is really easy to do these days, and look at that historically, that would be fascinating. So routing is one. Looking at those
Yeah.
metrics.
If,
Tell
if
tell me more. Tell us more.
if you had time to look at like the environmental one that I mentioned, these are real world problems with, you know, stormwater management design. I deal with stormwater management design in the projects I work with, and figuring out, how that impacts the network downstream to the municipal level. Right? These are things, and this is why, you know, that's going to got me interested a little bit in this mapping side. Was seeing that like the it's not just theoretical; it's actual information they're using to plot and map it and see how it's impacting the environment. So, and GHG, as you know, is a big topic these days. We skim over it. Has every company out there really started to measure their own, figured out how they can control that and report on that to their shareholders? That's something we do. I mean, we need to do if we're not doing it.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, the key one that you shared, kind of market share. And I liked how you had layering, that you can see the market share. It's like, hey, this is where you're physically located. This is our footprint in the area. This is where we kind of dominate. This is where we are not the dominant player. We have lower market share. But then layer it with other information about maybe demographics, and use that for perhaps your growth plans or marketing or advertising or some things like that.
Yeah, there are so many examples of or uh, applications of this just in that one area of market share. I can't get into the exact ins and outs and how it's used, uh, not like trade secrets, but that's kind of where we're leading to.
Mm,
It is a case of um, knowing your market. It's like know your customer. It's knowing your market, and really at the level of every transaction. You know that if I plotted in there that market share on a Costco, no, there's no secret. I don't think 2 years ago they were publicizing $1.5 million revenues a day at stores. Like
mm,
that becomes a huge number. How do I increase that? They have
yeah.
a lot of data because every user has a card, and they have information on that user because of the card that they have. But
Hmm.
I would say, and that helps them track that, where they're coming from, where they're going to. Some surveys don't even provide you for your customer. Your customer says, "Oh, I live in a zip code XYZ." That's not going to help you trying to target more uh, customers directly. Gives you approximation, proxy if
Mm,
you like, but yeah, there's a lot of that clever
yeah,
information.
that's true. I mean, of course, I'm thinking about stores. Most of the stores that I go to, I am a member at Costco, and even the local Safeway. Costco obviously have my membership card. Safeway, they have the loyalty programs and such,
Mhm.
and combining that data with mapping, that can be pretty incredible.
So there is one more before we leave. I
Mhm.
know it's 2 o'clock, but the fact of like footfall is a new generation. They track your usage of cell phones near proximities to retail. And
Yeah.
that data is amazing. Like, that's really where this is going.
Wow. Tell me a bit more about that. You did mention about the future and like the football example. Tell me a bit more about if you have seen anything else, like, hey, what's coming next?
Well,
Mapping,
AI, as you
forecasting.
know, is everyone kind of says, well, how's that going to take on on this platform? And I truly think that it's really good at not only analyzing the data that we have, but predicting what this could mean in the future. I have seen one application, I didn't show it, but in Quebec, they actually are looking at the urban sprawl. So they
Hmm.
used AI to kind of assess all the new housing developments, all their current projects on the go that have been in construction, and they are predicting through AI how that's going to impact the area. Uh, kind of, yeah,
Wow.
that's
Man,
like.
that's incredible. I think that's a great note to end things on. So we talked about
Mhm.
how I was fascinated with the historical data. Like if you have historical GPS data from instrumenting the traveling salesman and trucks, we can use that. But then AI can turn that into project and show what's going on. Anthony, thank you so
Oh, no
much.
problem.
I really enjoyed this presentation. This is something that I've been looking forward to for a long time. I've seen you do this magic and like, hey, give us a behind the scenes look. So thanks for that. Really appreciate it. Folks, make sure to connect with the speaker. You can find him on LinkedIn easily. I put the link in the chat as well. Anthony, thanks again.
My
And
pleasure,
yeah.
anytime, and safe journey, everyone, if everyone's traveling. But take care of yourselves.
All right.
All the
Take care,
best.
folks. We'll see you next
Bye.
time. Bye, Ron.